Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I got a few things to share with you in this video. I'll be starting with this one from CryptoCubs.com. Ripple's Emi Yoshikawa. PayID is payment method that bridges crypto and fiat currencies. And so here we go. Ripple leading the way to the Internet of Value, which is simply the idea of moving value around the planet just as easily as it is to send an email today. I've got a question from an XRP community member about Nostro accounts, which I shall be answering. And then probably wrap up with this piece from CoinDesk, unrelated to XRP, but interesting nonetheless. I think you'll enjoy this. The headline is Bitcoin CEO. MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor explains his $425 million bet on Bitcoin. But before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you would please ever so delicately tap the like button, I'd appreciate it. You don't have to, but if you do, you're basically just telling the YouTube algorithm to share the Moon Limbo content with more individuals. And so that's why I would say a very sincere thank you if you would be willing to. And also, I recommend that you treat yourself, girl, by subscribing to the Moon Lambo channel, which is the best channel in all of the land. Shout out to XRP Crypto Wolf for sending this first piece to me. I do appreciate it. And so let's just go ahead and dive in. So Ripple and PayID. Well, in a recent interview, Ripple's top executive, Emi Yoshikawa, explained how PayID would work and why it would be a bridge between cryptocurrencies and fiat globally. Yes, what do you know? Somebody at Ripple again spreading the idea of working with the financial, the existing financial system, rather than trying to take a sledgehammer to it and shouting irrationalities like down with banks and down with the government. No, that's not how people at Ripple roll. That type of behavior is for the the unsophisticated mouth-breathing troglodytes that are Bitcoin maxis. But in her interview with ZDNet Korea, Ripple's head of global operations, Emi Yoshikawa, stated that the PayID solution recently released by the DLT Decacorn Ripple and 40 other companies is going to bridge fiat currencies and crypto. Besides, it will bring together all payment solutions and platforms with a single standard to ensure their interoperability, she said. Then they have this little subheading. Sounds a lot like the Internet of Value. It reads as follows: sending payments as easily as emails. That's a fine subheading. So ZDNet Korea has spoken to Emi Yoshikawa about PayID, how it will transform the global system of payments, and what place cryptocurrencies will have in that future scheme. According to Yoshikawa, the PayID solution recently launched by Ripple and 40 other major banks and companies, including Brave Browser and crypto exchange Coin1, will transform the process of sending cash between various payment systems into an easy one, since it will be similar to sending emails, one of the simplest things to do these days. And indeed, so the example, if you've ever been to the website, and you know what an email address looks like, duh, but for this, it's like whatever your name is, and then instead of an @ symbol, a $sign, and then the domain. So super duper easy. But Yoshikawa emphasized that when sending emails today, you do not think about which email format the recipient uses, since everything to do with sending and receiving emails has long been standardized across platforms. Yeah, no kidding. And I've shared this before, but it's worth mentioning again because it's like, I get a chuckle out of this when I think about it. But so I'm 37 years old. And when I was a teenager in the 90s, my parents got us, my brothers and I, they got us Prodigy. Do you know what Prodigy is? It's a walled garden version of the internet, and eventually they did add a web browser. So like there was Prodigy, which was just initially its own little platform, and there's a dial-up modem, all that good stuff. But eventually they did add a web browser, and then walled gardens, obviously, as you know, ceased to exist. But when I started using it, and I don't remember exactly what year it would have been, so maybe, I don't know, 95, 96, 97. Whenever I started using it, though, I can't remember exactly how old I was. Maybe I was like 10 or 11, I can't remember. But you couldn't email other platforms. So like there was email on Prodigy. There was also America Online, another walled garden. And you couldn't, like, and all my friends, they had AOL, which was the cool one back in the day. Like, I remember being in 8th grade, and, like, all my friends had AOL. I'm the only one that had Prodigy, and they could all message each other, and I couldn't email my friends. And it's a funny story, but it's the same thing here as far as sending money. There is no interoperability. And that's why, just as, excuse me, just as laughable as that is, not being able to communicate across platforms, it's going to be just as laughable when you think about how hard it is to send a value today. I mean, you could even think about like Venmo and PayPal. One owns the other. Is it? I think it's PayPal that owns Venmo. Regardless, even under the same ownership, those platforms don't work together. They are not interoperable. That should clearly illustrate the degree to which this is all a problem, and Ripple is seeking to fix this. And don't forget that XRP is at the core of their business model. So the piece continues. Ripple, with its partners, wants to achieve the same for payments and allow various global payment solutions to interact with each other seamlessly. Now, PayID, excuse me, using universal technology for payment accounts. Emi Yoshikawa pointed out that these days, people around the world are using a lot of different payment apps, but they cannot collaborate. You cannot send money from one platform to another unless they are part of a bigger network or linked in another way. There is no standard that would join them together. PayID will join all payment networks and standards together, and also link cryptocurrency payment platforms with those that only use traditional fiat money. So how about that? Now, I wanted to... where do we go next? Sorry, guys, just 1 second here. I mapped these videos out earlier today, and I don't always have them perfectly memorized here. Integrations next. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to go this. Okay, so here's a XRP community member who posed what I thought was a good question, and so I thought I'd highlight it here on the channel. This is from, apologize if I butcher your name here, but it's Richard Rickaball. Rickaball? Probably Rickaball. I don't know. Sorry if I'm getting it wrong. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. But tagged me and wrote, Moon Level. Let's say banks around the world decided to use Ripple, and they all decide to remove dormant capital sitting in Nostro accounts. Would that money not have to be placed into Ripple to help provide enough liquidity to the system? If so, would that be any different than Nostro? Great question. And that's one of the things that I asked early on when I entered the world of crypto in late 2017, because I was just trying to get a handle, what does this look like? So, okay, I learned what Nostro accounts are, which is that's the whole pre-funding mechanism, which is why we're in this liquidity nightmare that we have today. And so would that money, if freed up, would not have to be replaced into Ripple to help provide enough liquidity to the system? Well, obviously the liquidity has to come from somewhere, but the short answer is no. The longer answer is because here's the neat thing about it, and this is why I always describe it as many people, when they're coming to understand how on-demand liquidity works, they have everything exactly backwards. Like I've debated people on the Twitters who have stated that XRP price must go to so-and-so as purely because corridors open, because there's going to be that much demand. And I said, no, that's backwards. In order for the corridors to open and be functionally useful, you have to already have the liquidity. So the way that it actually works is there are speculators, and there are cryptocurrency exchanges that are already providing the liquidity because, first of all, as far as the speculators go, they just want to be there to speculate, right? So there's already the buying and selling. That is liquidity. That is functionally liquidity. And they're doing that regardless, right? And so all that we're talking about is taking advantage of that liquidity that's already there anyway. And in the case of the cryptocurrency exchanges, those are pools of liquidity, and their business model is to make money off the buying and selling of cryptocurrency. So if people want to buy at market rate, the cryptocurrency exchange, it's their business model to do this, right? But when you're talking about Nostro accounts, it's very different, because these are banks that are taking risk just to be able to make cross-border payments and settlement possible. You're talking about parking the pre-fund money here. And so as markets, cryptocurrency markets grow and more money comes into XRP, as presumably price of XRP would rise over time. That's certainly the hope, right? That's the bet. And more people get involved, there would be more of the actual trading. And so The answer is no, it's not that the money has to flow into XRP specifically, it's that there's already trading going on there, which creates the liquidity, and we're just simply taking advantage of that, which is very different than parking money just so that it can get used. Because that dormant capital, like that, could absolutely be better allocated in other ways. And it's not something that's just going to open up like all at once. I can see, because look, here's the thing. The largest banks, they actually do make some money by charging their smaller competitors to tap into that liquidity. Because if you're a small bank, you don't have money parked all over the planet, and you've got customers that do want to use you as a financial services entity to move money around the planet. Well, you got to pay your larger competitors then to tap into all of this. And so I think some of the larger banks out there, they're going to be some of the last to finally get off this old system, the way that settlement occurs thanks to SWIFT. But inevitably, no matter how long it takes, like, there's a better way to do this. And so I think as markets are just grow out over time, my guess would be is that's what it would look like. You just see like this gradual shift away from it. I'm not one of these people that thinks it all is just going to necessarily happen at once. There is no, like, quote-unquote, flip the switch, as some people like to say. I think that gets a little too hypey and unrealistic. But you can have not just an increase in terms of on-demand liquidity corridors opening, but an exponentially increasing amount of on-demand liquidity corridors coming in. But a lot of it's just going to be, it's going to require waiting for the maturation of this asset class and for more institutional money and general investors to come in, because that does increase. Ultimately, the idea would be increase price across the board for the asset class, as well as liquidity. And so again, we're just talking about taking advantage of the fact that people are going to speculate, and people speculate on anything, And so we're just talking about taking advantage of that. And so it is very. But anyway, that was a great question. I hope that answered it to your expectations. If there's any question or follow-up, just let me know, because I find the conversation on this topic very fun. All right, last piece for this video: Bitcoin CEO from CoinDesk. MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor explains his $425 million bet on Bitcoin. Then it says here, MicroStrategy is prepared to hodl its Bitcoin for at least a century. Or so said the business intelligence firm's founder and CEO, Michael Saylor, in an interview with CoinDesk on Tuesday, shortly after he announced on Twitter that MicroStrategy was doubling down on the Godfather cryptocurrency with the purchase of $175 million more Bitcoin. Here's a quote, I want something that I could put $425 million into for 100 years, Saylor told CoinDesk. And the last 2 months, Saylor has transformed his company's once sleepy cash surplus into a nearly $500 million bet on Bitcoin, the digital gold Saylor is certain will outlast his tenure. If my successor is staring at this thing, it's still working, he said. This thing is a heaping pile of 38,250 Bitcoins. The publicly traded firm bought $250 million worth on August 11th, days after telling shareholders that cash was no longer a safe place for its excess $500 million. Tuesday morning, it bought $175 million more. Whoa! Craziness! I think that's the coolest frickin' story. I know it's not XRP, but damn, dude, that is crazy. And I reported on this one. It was initially in the news, but damn, more to it now. And then they're right here. Forget about parking the balance sheet surplus in inflation-prone cash or low-yield bonds or overextended tech stocks, Saylor said. In a market like this, and in the future, he said, is certain to come, there are only two good places to put excess cash to work: stock buybacks and Bitcoin. It's a radical about-face for a man who 7 years ago declared Bitcoin's days were numbered, which is interesting there. And you can see it, indeed, there's a tweet on the screen, December 18th, 2013. Boy, was that wrong. But that's okay. People, they end up coming around, right? So anyway, I'll wrap it up there, but I just thought it was a cool story. And you're going to see more and more of this. Cash is not going to hold. Just whatever you need, as an emergency fund. Okay, I get that for X number of months, whatever you're comfortable with. But beyond that, if you hold whatever amount of dollars you hold, 1 year from now, it's going to be worth less, or whatever your fiat currency is. They're all experiencing inflation. So I'm not interested in holding a bunch of dollars, and I'm acting accordingly. But anyway, that is it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!